Hey, welcome back to the show. Live from downtown Toronto, it's me, Hugh, and we're happy to have Leah Morrigan here now, image consultant for men only. And you were telling me, Leah, that you're is it the first or the only
First,
in Canada to
yeah,
deal only with men?
yeah.
And I mean, that is a interesting fact all by itself. Why just men? I'm just curious.
Well, let's see if I can make this so simple. I grew up with boys. There's always been a very heavy masculine lean on my life, very little feminine interactions with me. So it's been a lot of boys about men. I used to wear men's clothes when I was young. I'm fascinated by men. I'm fascinated by men's clothing. And it's just very natural for me to work with men.
Okay.
There's nothing really behind it.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Because, you know, one thing that I'm going to ask you about this because I know you think very profoundly about these issues. But people say that, I've had some conversations with women, that men's clothes it's better made than women's clothes in general. Is it?
Yeah, well, I mean, it gets into, like, women have a lot of clothing shops that are very fast fashion. There's a lot, like, if you go to H&M or if you go to, like, Joe Fresh or something like that, the bulk of it is women's because women are like that. We want change. We want new stuff.
Women are buying new clothes more than
we
guys.
We sure are, yeah. And men have a tendency to, not all of them, of course, and not the younger ones especially, but men in general kind of like, I have to wear this because it's the law, so they have to put something on. So
Right.
a lot of them will just sort of think that way. As long as it doesn't fall off, it's
and
okay.
they don't even like shopping, right?
Well,
for
you know what? I
clothes.
don't like shopping either. So, but I have a process, and I take the pain away with my guys. And so I sort of, in the end, have a little collection at one store for them ready on a rolling rack. It's all there, and then they come in and they start
So
trying
you can
on.
make it easy for those guys that want to look great, but
Yes.
they hate shopping.
I make it very, very easy.
Wow, okay.
Painless.
Okay. Well, there's okay. I'm sold already. Okay. Let's talk about what this means for guys because I mean, obviously, you're not just you've thought a lot about this. You put a lot into it. You've got a whole process. Do you want to talk a little bit about your process first?
So, to begin with, I have a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in theater and costume design. All right, so there's a lot of psychology at work here because essentially what I'm doing is I'm designing the client's wardrobe for him specifically, not for anybody else.
Not for just another guy.
No,
for
and
this
everyone is an
particular
individual,
person. Yeah.
and I appreciate that. So I'm essentially looking at my clients as characters, but I don't get their play. So that means
What?
that means that I have to somehow come up with something else that's going to replace the play, but give me the same amounts of information that I would need ordinarily to design a costume for a character in a play, right?
Because
Okay.
when you're designing a costume for a character,
Yeah.
you know what the play is, and that informs your decisions. But here you're doing the same thing, but there's no play.
Yeah, so I need
Okay.
to recreate that individual's play or create, I suppose, from the ground up. So I send my clients it's about 35 questions of profile with all kinds of things that will help me understand who he is as a character, as an individual. So what kind of art do you like? How do you spend your time? What kind of books do you read? What do you listen to? How do you spend your time? What are your long-term goals? What are your short-term goals? How do you feel about yourself? What was your childhood like? All kinds of things that will formulate who this person is, because this is what's important for me. I recognize and I really appreciate the individual, the unique individual, not the guy that society says he should be.
Right. And this is, I mean, I could see this for a lot of guys. You know, my kind of guy, whatever that is. They don't really know. They want to look their best. They want to be their best, but they don't know what to do. And here you're bringing this fine arts, I mean, really getting the story out of the person to come up with something that, with your artistic sensibility, that guy may never have been able to come up with on their own.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the draw with the clients, because they don't realize how deeply I go into it. And so once we're in it, they love it, of course, because,
It's all about them.
Well, it's all about them, of course, and everybody's going to react well to that. But at the same time, at least for the profile stage, what happens is I go through it and I do my analysis. And what I usually find is the same kind of concepts will come up again and again, and usually it's unbeknownst to the man that's writing it. So as the designer, I'm looking for these things. So in the end, when I go through all of my process, I come up with a handful of adjectives, and I meet with the client again. We go through, fill in any holes there may be, and get some more descriptions and things like that. And then I present him my collection of adjectives, and I said, "Did I get you?" And touch wood, I always do.
Oh.
So, and I think what this does for the man is, so when I'm going back to the concept of being your individual, not the person that other people say you should be, because men have carried a heavy load in the sense of gender roles. Okay, I'm fascinated by gender. So, for example, one thing I always say to men is that you guys are coming to me because you've never had the social opportunity to learn these things like women have. Like women know how to, most women, not all women, a lot of women have a sort of a flair for matching colors or,
right.
Looking at pieces of clothing, touching it, feeling it, all that kind of thing. But men haven't had the opportunity to do that because they've been stuck into different roles throughout their lives.
Play sports or
earn your living, take care of this, make sure you got enough money. You got to fill these socially demanding roles.
They're taking shop, not home ec.
That's right, and I think that's the way it's been. I'm not going to judge on that, but that's what a lot of men have experienced, and so I don't think that's fair. So what I'm bringing to the table is an opportunity for men to get to know who they are and really celebrate who they are and really show the world who they are and look awesome while they do it.
Wow. Okay. I think everybody needs that. Any guy that wants to be their best really needs that. Okay. So that's kind of the big picture.
Yeah.
Right? Your philosophical approach to the whole matter.
Yeah.
Let's get into the actual specifics of
Sure.
the process.
Okay, I'm going to show you some stuff that I brought, and I would normally show potential clients this stuff anyway. Okay. So I have a process. The engineers and the doctors and the lawyers that I work with really like my process. So, so I basically follow this roadmap: grooming, color, body work, lifestyle, wardrobe, style chart.
Can I look at that?
Yeah, sure. And then I have 2 pages of measurements because I need to really have to understand as much as I can about my client so that I can dress him correctly as per his lifestyle and his personality. Really important. You have to be yourself.
Yeah.
And I also need to know what am I dealing with here? Size, shape, measurements, all of that kind of thing. I'm also looking at proportion. I'm very analytical. I think you probably have realized this by now. But it's really important for me to understand the client as completely as I can so that I can give him a really good end product.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So what do you call this document?
That is my process.
Oh, this is the whole process
That's
right here.
Well, that's part of the process. Actually, I have my client profile here. So it's several pages, but there's all kinds of psychological stuff in
Holy
here
cow.
and all kinds of stuff.
There's stuff here like a mountain pose. I don't even
But
know
it's
what that is.
this is all. Well, this is if I'm a Rolling Stone and I'm collecting things along the way, everything I've ever learned, I use in my
Holy
work. Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody else doing this to this level
It's
of
pretty
detail
intense.
and really care.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I really do care because I think that men endlessly fascinate me. I spent a very long time studying men, psychologically, sociologically. I've even gone into brain research because your brains are very different than my brain is. And
Right.
so I wanted to figure out why that was. And I learned so many things along the way, but people think of me as a men's expert, which is kind of a weird thing for a woman to say. And I certainly don't want to take ownership of all men, but I do have a lot of insight. Let's just say that.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, well, thank
All I
you.
can say.
Thank you.
Okay, Okay, what about some of those other things you got?
So when we do things like, for example, color work. So this is where I'm using science in this part of the process, because color is light, and without light there is no color. We're talking about physics, and we're talking about solar radiation, and I'm also working with DNA ethnicity, because I also want to know when I do color analysis with someone, I want to know where your people are from, because there seems to be a correlation between your color palette and where your genetic origins are from, because of the amount of solar radiation that your ancestors, I suppose, would have received on that latitude on the Earth. So my people are Northern Europe.
Yeah.
So I'm really pale. And so this gives me, but I'm asking everybody, where are your people from, because I want to be as on the button as I can.
Now, do you find, this is something that fascinates me, do you find that people Europeans who have been like, okay, my people, whatever, they've been here for a few generations now. Do you think that we start to adapt to
Not
this
in 3
climate?
generations. No,
Well,
we're talking about thousands of years.
I don't know. Sometimes I think it happens maybe a little quicker than that.
I don't know. I'm not a scientist,
anyways,
so
okay.
I can't answer that
okay,
question.
we'll move along from
Anyway,
there.
so about the color. So I'm asking all kinds of things about the color, and I also talk about color theory, and just there's a lot of education that goes into my process, because I want men to understand what they're doing, because we all have to wear clothes, want to understand it a little bit better.
Yeah.
And they all, I mean, I have a good reception on this, so it's not like, they're bored. This is really interesting stuff.
No, it is interesting already.
Thank you.
And
Okay.
it beats just walking into a store and I'll try
Yeah.
this one.
No. Okay. So what's your favorite color hue?
My favorite color?
Easy question.
I know, but
Do you need some help?
I'll say orange.
Orange. Okay, so orange. So if you want to look at this orange here with me, okay. So this is a basic color wheel. This is an artist's color wheel.
Okay.
I work with 10 palettes.
Yeah.
This is going to show us 4 palettes in the orange section.
Okay.
So when you think of orange, you
Yeah.
think of orange. Everybody thinks of the same color, pretty much.
Yeah.
This is actually a hue.
Yeah.
Hue. Which has a blue or cool undertone to it.
Okay.
And when we start mixing neutrals into it,
Yeah.
like white, we get the tint, so that makes it peach. When we mix this with gray, we get something that you probably wouldn't
Have a name
recognize as orange, but it is technically still orange,
Okay.
though it's been mixed with grays.
All right.
And then when we mix it with black, we get a totally different orange, like a burnt orange.
Okay.
So those are all. There's 10 of these. There's 10 different oranges that I work with, okay?
All right.
But what I like to try to do is to try to get the client to understand that, here we are in Toronto where most people wear black. Whereas there are billions of colors in the universe to choose from. So why would you just go for black?
Because we're from Toronto.
Yeah, well, and here I'm in yellow today. Anyway, so that's another thing that I like to be able to get across, is because once they see themselves, because I'm draping, so we're looking in a mirror, we're in front of a window using the solar radiation, and I'm draping, and we're actually watching his face change. Light does amazing things. It can make you look like a corpse. It can make you look like a god. It can make your teeth whiter, your eyes brighter, your skin sallow and pasty, all kinds of things. So the goal is, because we're talking about, this is where I go back into the physics, when we talk about vibration, color radiation coming from the light from the sun, what I'm trying to do essentially, so I'm asking about your ethnic background and all kinds of things, looking very closely at you so I can get an understanding of what I'm working with. So my goal ultimately is to analyze the light that's coming from your face. How is it meshing with the drape that we have on you? Because the goal is to make this harmonious so that this isn't asking for more attention than this is, because this is where all the attention should be. So when you wear a lovely color, well, you get a whole lot. Your life becomes a little bit better, I think, because
What you want to, it's like some people view clothes as art, but though, I mean, this is something I came up with, but it's like, it's really like the clothes that you wear, the whole package, including you, is the art.
Exactly, that's
Right?
right. Yeah, and you sort of want everything to work together, right?
Yeah,
We don't
yeah.
want to have a lot of We don't want to have like the head floating above the clothes. Sometimes it will look like that if the color is wrong.
Right.
But that's the basis of the wardrobe for me. Everything is in your palette at the end when we do the collection. So that's the color portion, and that's always fun.
Now, do you go on? Do you work with whatever the person's favorite color is?
No. That was just an example to show
good,
you that
good.
there's a
Good,
lot of
because
color.
I'm not sure orange is really my favorite.
No, there's an orange. Well,
I like a lot
okay.
of different colors.
Well, there you go. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see what else we talk about. Another thing that's very important is fit. Fit is extremely important.
Yeah.
Fit may be the most important part of anybody's wardrobe,
I'm
whether the
with
color
you.
is right or not. So. We also have to look at style. So when I was talking about analyzing the body and understanding what I'm like, with the shape that I'm working with, I also have to understand, like, if the client has said to me, "Oh, well, I want to wear some skinny jeans or skinny pants or something like that," I have to be very honest with him because there are differences in people's bodies. So, for example, if this is your body and you want to wear a skinny suit, go right ahead because it's going to work for you because you're a skinny man.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, when skinny suits were the only thing available and you didn't have a skinny body and you were Otis Redding, for example, have a look and see how terribly that suit fits on him. So in other words, what I'm saying is I have to be realistic with what I'm working with. If the client is shaped like Otis Redding and he says, "I want to wear a skinny suit," we need to make some adjustments so that the suit fits properly on him and he doesn't look like he's wearing a sausage casing.
Right.
Yeah. So that's part of the analysis. That's part of the body analysis that I need to do so that I can understand what
And
I'm
overcoming.
working with.
It's overcoming because I think people get sort of frozen into certain kinds of fashion sensibilities. Like if you you grow up at a certain time, you're going to always like long hair.
Yeah.
Or you're going to always like bell bottoms or whatever it is, right? But, you have to kind of get out of that because you see it, you can see it. People walking around in clothes that, you really shouldn't be wearing that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you can wear whatever you want, but, if it's in your mind that you want to look good, then you have to pay attention to these things.
So if you want to look good, right, that's what we're
That's what it's about. If you want to look good, I mean, long hair and bell bottoms had their day.
Yeah.
That day is gone. We're moving forward, and in fact, I was talking to somebody last night who works in the industry, and we both. I have a name for this. He was talking about, those guys, men, when they get to about, between 17 and 25, he said that's when they they stick and they stay there.
Yeah.
And they may not always change. So I have a word for that, and the word is, if you're moving from 17 to 25, if we're looking at it this way, then they flatline, and they stop changing. And I think that it's easy for that to happen, I mean, to anybody, because you sort of go with what you're used to, what you're familiar with, even though the rest of the world is changing around you at the same time. It's a comfort zone, and I appreciate that people feel safe there. But if you want to make a good impression on the world and really get ahead, you're going to want to change what you look like and update yourself, and or at least make yourself look better to some degree if you can.
Well, you got to update to the times, but you also have to update to you as you change, right?
Exactly, that's right. So, if I'm working with a client here, and then 10 years later I'm working with the same client, we have to go back and chat. How's your life different? How's your body different? Let's redo this for you. Your coloring is not going to change, but your body probably has changed to some degree. So let me remeasure you and sort of do a little mini analysis just to see where you've been and where you've come, where you are now. Because it's important to make sure that you are up to date and you're well fit.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, what else you got over there?
Well, I know how to put clothes together. I know how to make patterns and put clothing together. So I made this little. These are little pattern pieces of trousers. Okay. So this gets into pleats. Okay, now menswear moves very slowly, very, very slowly. So some men don't have to freak out about, what am I going to do next season? We don't need to do that. And men would not be bothered with that anyway. Most men, younger men maybe, older men couldn't be bothered, and I appreciate that. So when I talk about fit, like getting back to this and being realistic about the body type, because men's clothing goes so slowly, it took us a long, long time to get out of those awful double pleated trousers that we had for a long, long time. Men still wear them. In fact, Levi's Dockers still make them, and they still sell them. I don't know why, but anyway, they do. We are already starting to see single pleats, not with the big wide legs, but trimmer, to sort of keep in line with what we have been seeing. But we are seeing pleats again. So this is going to be a relief for men that are larger through the thigh, for example, because they're going to have a little bit more room. When they sit down, their trousers aren't going to bunch up around their legs. It's going to be comfortable. So what I did, just to illustrate this, is I made a pattern piece for this is a one side of a front leg, okay, and then I put some pleats in just so you can see. Okay, so this is built off of the same pattern piece. This pattern piece. Here's one version with little pleats in here, and there's little pleats in here, and there's two different ways of doing it. I don't need to go into the construction, but this is what we end up with on the other side. So you can see how much fabric is added to the leg of the trouser because the pleats are in it. And there's two different ways of doing this. So the first one, this one, you still have all of this extra off the side, off the hip.
Yeah.
And with this, in this version, okay, now what happens here is when you're wearing clothing that's too big for you, or there's too many pleats in it, it will make you look bigger and shorter. So in other words, it's adding visual weight to you that isn't there at all.
Making you look a
That's
little
right.
wider.
That's what clothes that are too big make you look like. And in most cases, we don't want to do that because it's not exactly flattering.
Right.
So I like to keep that in mind. And I mean, there's no judgment. There's no. Everybody's at where they're at. Yeah. So there's no. I'm not going to put anybody down for that, certainly. But I do want to explain to the client that if you choose this pant, this is what will happen. This is what you will look like. Because it's hard to see yourself, right? It's hard to have an objectivity towards yourself.
Yeah, it's like this is why your role is so important. It's like, even if you do, right? Every writer needs an editor.
Well, there you go. That's exactly it. Yeah. So it's very much like that. So to have that objective opinion is really important. I don't know, like if the man is married, for example, the person that he sees every day, once you get to see something all the time and you're that familiar, you're going to stop seeing it, right? So you may not have anything to bring to the table at that point. But so this is why the objective opinion is really important, because I don't have any past. I have no history with this person. All I'm seeing is what he's showing me.
Yeah, you're bringing a clean...
get to work, on a clean slate.
Yeah. Okay. Do you have any more?
I don't have any more props.
Wow.
But I can talk more if you want.
You can?
Yes.
What would you talk about next?
Well, I don't know. I mean, do you have anything that you'd like to talk about?
I do have,
okay.
But I mean, I think what's really coming out here is the thoroughness of the whole process, the expertise that you bring to
Thank
it,
you.
right? And what does it cost?
Well, I have different packages.
Okay.
I go from the quick fix is a half a day with me, 4 hours with me for $500, and then I go up to then I've got a middle package which is more thorough, which I believe is $1,200, and then the biggest package, which is very thorough and has a lot of time with me, is $1,750, I believe. Yeah.
And who are most of your clients?
Well, my clients at the moment are quite varied, but I'm kind of veering off to one segment. So right now, for example, I'm working with, I just finished working with a man who's 6'4", really large guy, lovely guy, moving very quickly up the ladder at his company. So his company hired me to get him executive ready. So now he is. I'm also working with a young guy, 32 years old, short guy, 5'4", who's working in a very different environment. He's a programmer in IT, and they're obviously very casual in comparison to this first fellow that I talked about. So, just the two of them unto themselves are very, very different, and they ask for very, very different things. Most of the time, the men are coming to me because they recognize that they want to change and they don't know how to do it. They admit that they don't know how to do it. I need some help. And that can be difficult for some men in the first place, but it's very not scary with me.
Well, that's got to be the first. I mean, nobody's going to call you unless they have already made that decision.
Well, that's right. And so now that it's become more socially acceptable for men to be interested in clothes and men to be interested in grooming and be interested in color or whatever way they present.
Or how about just interested in being their best?
That would be fine too. Yeah.
Because then you can take care of all that detail stuff.
Yeah. So it's, it depends. I mean, everybody's different. So men could be coming to me because of their job, because they're moving up in the world. They may come to me because they're ready to change, that they're, in fact, I'm starting to really focus on men who are over 45, who are, you've got your career, you've got your house, your car, whatever it is. And somewhere along the way, they've lost themselves.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the guys that I welcome because they need a re-imaging. They need a recharge.
Yeah. Well, that's that whole midlife crisis thing, right?
I guess so. Yeah.
But it's it sounds like a great way to kind of, solve that crisis or just reboot, right?
Exactly. In fact, I was working with a fella at the top of the year who he's actually on my website. If you look at it, there's a process photographs. Okay, this is the fellow I'm talking about. Lovely guy. They're all lovely guys. I'm blessed to have really great clients. Anyway, he really took all of this to heart, and because he's also now a coach for people, so he also needs to present his best to these people that are relying on him for advice, right? So there's all kinds of different reasons why a client may come to me. Another segment that I would like to work with more are men that use internet dating.
Oh, that's a whole industry right there.
Yeah, I was reminded again. I used some sites at the beginning of the year, and then I couldn't do it anymore. But I see the way that men present themselves on internet dating.
Yeah.
And as a woman and as an image consultant, I obviously have it. I'm looking at them a different way than probably most women are. But I find that men who use the internet dating sites aren't using it enough to their benefit.
Well, holy cow! I mean, that's a whole other conversation. I mean, because you, what did you say? You're fascinated with men. I mean, you understand men. You've been paying attention, and now here you are looking at these dating sites, and it's got to be like, do men need to relearn how to deal with women? Or something?
I think they need to rethink about how to approach women.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Or even, but this is a whole other topic. So
it is.
This is
we should
maybe
have a part
another time. But do men and women? Because here you are, understanding men. But do men and women need to relearn how to do relationships?
That I can't comment on.
Yeah.
I am not a relationship therapist. I'm an image consultant.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But that is something that I do actually have a service for men that want to improve their online image. So men have a tendency to just put up any old picture.
Yeah.
Here's here's me with my dog. Here's me with they're not flattering pictures.
Right.
That's what I'm trying to say.
It's not what women. They're not understanding what women might be looking for.
I think that might be it. Yeah, that could be it. But even what they write about themselves leaves a lot to be desired in a lot of cases. And this is just through my own personal experience through these. They're so vague that the man will just say, "I'm an open book. Ask me anything you want." And I have,
that doesn't help.
That doesn't help. Well, that gives us no direction. That gives us no indication of who the guy is. Nothing. Right. So this, coupled with terrible pictures, isn't very appealing.
So, is this a service that you've launched? Can guys call you now and start improving their love life?
I'm also an editor and a writer. So this is where things can get really good for people that want to take out that service.
Okay, great. Yeah. Well, I got to say, it's been great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Really fascinating to have this conversation.
Thank you.
So if guys want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can call me at 416-795-8234. They can send me an email at info@transformyourself.ca. They can go to my website, which is about to change, so it'll still be the same address, but it will look different shortly. So there's lots of ways to get in touch.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
And the website, transformyourself.ca. Sounds like a good idea.
Thank you.
Okay, Leah, thanks. Okay, we're going to take a little break here, and we're going to come back, and we're going to talk to John Lennon, as channeled through, I hope I'm using the right words, Marsha McMahon on Skype, so please stay tuned, thatchannel.com.
I'm the first woman in Canada to specialize in men's image. It's very easy for me to take off 15 years from a guy from updating his wardrobe. I ended up going to theater school at the university in my hometown where I'm from in costume design. So that's where I learned to build clothes properly and interpret character. That's when I sort of understood that my brain is very analytical. I like to analyze everything. And I just knew right away that I was going to be an image consultant for men because I wanted to be a men's designer in the beginning. And I love men's clothing. It's fascinating. And so from theater school, I was able to have an understanding of the evolution of clothing, where clothing comes from, why it exists, and where it's going. Men are endlessly fascinating to me, and their clothing is an expression of who they are. And so I think that the more men who understand themselves and their clothing, the better world is going to be, because they're going to be happier people. The guys that I work with have to be open to change. They have to want to be able to do the changing, otherwise it won't work. If there's any resistance, the process won't work on him. It's a very exciting process. It's revisiting his true self that's probably, with a lot of guys, got lost somewhere along the way, and showing him a perspective of himself that he's never seen before. And usually what that means is that he's discovering how awesome he is, because that's what I've done, and that's what I'm trying to illustrate to him and bring that out so he can be the best self he can be.
Leah is an incredible artist. She very much is someone that I respect for what she's able to do in the way she can literally transform someone. She's extremely knowledgeable in all areas of everything it takes to be a man and everything it takes to project properly and present properly. Very, very clever, very, very knowledgeable, very funny, very honest as well, which is a little bit disconcerting when you're kind of going through the process. But very reassuring. She's someone that will take you on this journey and make you feel good about taking the journey, and you'll come out the other end of it happier and confident and able to project so much more because of what she can do for you. She's an amazing lady.
Sometimes it depends on the guy. The changes can be very subtle, but they're extremely powerful. It could be changing the colors that he's wearing, or changing the fit, or changing the cut of clothing, whatever it is, what kind of clothing he needs for his lifestyle. But, also at the same time, they can be absolutely astounding in the sense that people will say, "What happened? Did you lose weight?" Or what? They can't quite put their finger on the changes. This is an investment in yourself. Okay, are you worth it? You have to ask yourself that first. We only get one chance to make first impressions, so why not make a good one?